So this truck's been great, but over the years, I find that we keep needing to haul heavier loads. We have a bigger camper these days. We're hauling a dump trailer. And so before I bump up to an F250 or a 350, like I'm thinking about doing, or you bump up to a 2500 or a 3500, I'm going to try putting on these airbags. They're basically lifts. They prevent the back of the truck from sagging. And so we're going to see how they work. So follow along if you want to check out the install. I found this kit on Amazon and it had a ton of good reviews, so I went ahead and bought it. It was just under $200, and I'll link to it in the description below if you want to check them out. They are vehicle specific, so just make sure you search for one that will work with the make and model of your truck. Start by jacking up the vehicle and using a couple jack stands for safety, and then remove the wheel. The first step is going to be to remove the existing bump stop. I have a long 1/2-inch socket on an extension, and I'm going to slide that into here. It's on there pretty good. After using a larger breaker bar style socket wrench, I used a small socket wrench with a ratchet to speed up the process. You can't fit a battery-powered socket wrench everywhere, but when possible, they are super quick and handy for mechanical work. Now, the main reasons I wanted suspension airbags is to level the vehicle to prevent it from sagging and to improve stability. Connect the air fitting on the top of the airbag and then fit the top metal piece over it. Make sure you use the part designated for the side you're working on. In our case, we're working on the passenger side to begin with. The kit I'm using is for 2015 to 2025 Ford F-150s. Just make sure you use the correct hole placement for your truck. In this case, it recommended using it in the front position. Slide on the lower bracket and tighten it to the bottom of the airbag. A top bracket will go on the vehicle next and secure with these bendable tabs. Bend each of the tabs somewhere around 30 to 45 degrees so they'll sit flush against the inside of the frame once inserted. I had to play around with the angle a bit, and on the Ford it goes through this hole. Use the original bolt from the bump stop to attach the bracket from the underside. Then use the supplied bolts to attach the rest of the bracket to each of the 2 tabs that you stuck into the frame. This is probably the trickiest part of the project, trying to get it to line up so you can get the bolt into the threads of the nut on each tab. Once that was done, go ahead and finish tightening up each of the bolts. The next step is to fit the airbag assembly over the leaf springs and to the top bracket we just secured to the vehicle. The assembly will pivot a little bit, so you can line up the 2 bolts that attach the assembly to the left and right side. Put a nut on each of the 4 bolts by hand, and then we'll tighten them completely in a later step. Next, attach the lower bracket to the leaf springs using the supplied U-bolts and nuts. It requires quite a few turns, so I used a deep socket as much as I could, and then finished up using a ratcheting wrench. The tallest side of the bracket goes toward the front of the vehicle, and I did find that it helps to tighten the rear U-bolt prior to cinching down the front U-bolt. Lastly, tighten up any remaining bolts to make sure everything is secured. The next step is to unravel the air tube that will connect the airbag to the valve where you will eventually fill it up. It comes with a plastic bracket that can be attached to the truck with a zip tie, and you can decide where to put the bracket and filling valves, but I put them on the frame near the back of the truck. Next, connect each of the fill valves to the bracket, and I've seen people use a T-fitting, so you only need 1 fill valve to fill up each airbag at the same time, which I think is a cool idea. I just did it according to their directions, though, since I didn't have a spare T-fitting in the shop. Snip off the end of each zip tie to clean things up, and then attach the first air tube to the fitting by pushing it into place. Route the line underneath your vehicle and toward the airbag. It should hug the underside of your vehicle, and I was able to route mine through the frame of the truck and then just use zip ties anywhere I needed. Use the supplied tube cutter to snip the airline close to where it will attach to the air fitting, and then simply push the tube onto the fitting. So that's all there is to installing the entire passenger side airbag suspension kit. It's basically a hose to connect an air compressor to, so you can fill 2 disc-shaped bladders that look like hockey pucks. Reinstall your tire, torque your lug nuts, and then move your jack and jack stands before moving on to the other side of the vehicle. Installing the driver side is basically the same exact process as installing the passenger side, but I wanted to show you the complete install, so we'll quickly breeze over the second side before moving on to showing the new airbag suspension kit in action. We'll jack up the driver's side and get ready to install that second airbag. Now, I picked up this battery-powered impact wrench last year for doing seasonal tire swaps and for removing old or big rusty bolts and nuts, and this thing has been one of the best tools I've purchased in a while. I'll link to it in the description if you want to check it out. Stick around to the end to see how the installed airbags perform when hooking up our 23-foot RV and our dump trailer. Remove the plastic covers on the airbag. That nice and tight. Pay extra attention when you're installing this top bracket to the airbag. I accidentally mounted it to the rear holes, which is going to cause it to line up incorrectly over your leaf springs. So I undid it off camera and moved it to the front holes. Now this could definitely vary for what holes you mount it to, depending on your model and vehicle type. The kit is being put on a 2019 Ford F-150 in this video. Bend your tabs so they'll fit in from the hole on the back side of the frame. You can hold onto the handle on the tab and then look in the hole toward the front side of the frame to line things up. After the first tab is installed, insert the second and then connect it with the bolt from the front side. Here you can see I repositioned the bolts to go through the front holes so it fits correctly over the leaf springs. You can compress the airbags and then pivot it to get it lined up correctly with the two holes on each side. Use a U-bolt on each side to secure that lower bracket to the leaf springs, and I cinched them close with a deep socket on the impact and then finish tightening with a ratcheting wrench. Once complete, connect the air tube to the fitting on the airbag, and then run it through the frame or tightly to the vehicle, similar to how you ran the other side. Cut the tail of the zip ties, and then double check that all bolts are nice and tight. Connect the other end of the tube to the fill fitting near the rear bumper and push it in place. Again, feel free to put these connections in the most convenient spot for your vehicle. I thought I'd show you how these expand in case you haven't seen how these work already. You basically hook up an air pump or a compressor to the fill valve, and the airbag bladder fills with the air and hardens. Now this air pump has a built-in PSI gauge, but you can fill it and check using a normal tire pressure gauge. When you're not hauling anything, you can use the supplied tool to loosen the shredder valve and remove the air. They recommend keeping the airbags at around 5 to 10 PSI when you're not hauling for optimal ride and comfort. Here's what they look like now that they're completely deflated again. Now that you've seen how they work, we'll put the rear tire back on and take a look at how these airbags change the height of the truck without a trailer on them. All right, we got about 9 inches. At 50 PSI, I have about 10.5 inches. At 70 PSI, I have 11 inches. Now we'll take a look at it hooked up to our 23-foot Jayco camper that weighs about 5,800 pounds before the airbags were installed. And 9 inches from the top of the wheel to the bottom of the wheel well. We're lowering the trailer, and you can see the tongue weight applied to the hitch as it goes down. We got about 7 inches from the top of the tire to the bottom of the wheel well. We'll raise the trailer jack back up, but you can see the distance between the wheel well and the top of the tire decreased about 2 inches without airbags. About 11 inches. Now we have 10 inches. With the airbags at 60 PSI, my pickup is still reading an inch higher than it would without airbags and a trailer attached, and there is no sag toward the bed of the pickup. Next, I'm going to attach my Southland 7x14 dump trailer that weighs 3,800 pounds with the airbag set at 60 PSI. All right, here's the dump trailer. I got about 11 1/4 inches before I put it on. Okay, we're down to about 10 3/4. Now this is for demonstration purposes only because I would not recommend hauling an 8,300 pound skid steer on a 3,800 pound dump trailer behind an F-150, which would be about 12,100 pounds pulling in total. But I wanted to show you what it looks like without and then with the airbags installed. As you can see, there's a significant amount of sag to the pickup, and while I forgot to measure, you can see that the truck looks like it's about ready to blast off into space. The airbags are now installed and at 60 PSI. The overall decrease in the wheel well turned out to be 1.5 inches, so it's still riding level and an inch higher than it would without airbags in a trailer. So this airbag kit is rated for a maximum tongue weight of 5,000 pounds, so of course be conscious of that and the specs provided by the manufacturer. Hopefully you found this helpful. This is a little different video than I usually do, so let me know if you like it and what you think, and if you found it helpful. If you did, please smash the like button and subscribe, and have a good one. Cheers.